What's up, everybody? Thinker St. James here. Just wanted to put a brief disclaimer before this video, considering that during the live recording of it, we were having all kinds of technical difficulties with the internet, and sadly, Chase took the brunt of those. So during this video, you'll notice that there are all kinds of problems with the audio and video from Chase's side of things. If you can try to put those out of your mind and just key into the conversational aspects of what we're talking about regarding this film, I do think that there's a lot of value that we bring to it regarding our specific perspectives on it. So hopefully you can do that. Hopefully you can still enjoy. As always, we appreciate your support. So thank you very much, and off we go.
I'm going to beat you into the living death.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Thinker St. James. I am joined today by my good friend Chase Parton. And today, after what feels like 2 months of lead time, we are here to bring you our review of 2025's The Smashing Machine. Chase, how are you?
Dude, I am awesome. Surprisingly awake after what I will tell you I went through last night for this movie. So I'm really excited to get into it.
Indeed, we both had very different experiences with watching this film. Both yesterday, though, so technically it comes out today. This is the 3rd of October.
Did it technically come out today?
That's a weird thing. Both of us were able to see it yesterday, but it technically the release date was today. I don't know why that was, if we got an early viewing or not, or whatever, advanced viewings perhaps, but either way, the official release date is today, the 3rd of October, but we all saw it, you and I, yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And for it all, as we stated before, that we see it on Thursday. It didn't say that this was an advanced screening. There's no reason that Ohio and Florida, these 2 random theaters, 3 theaters, because I checked a couple and they were all showing it on Thursday. And it's just crazy to me. They weren't even showing it in like the back lot theaters. Like, no, they were showing it in the Dolby IMAX on the 2nd, but telling everybody it is coming out tomorrow. I don't know what's going on with that one.
Indeed, yeah. For whatever reason, I'm happy that we got to see it one day early. So if that's the case, whatever the reason may have been, we got that little extra boost in the time, and now we're here to talk about all of the details of it. So if you have watched our reviews before, you know that me and Chase generally go over a film point by point. We're pretty meticulous with our reviews, but neither of us wanted to be sitting in a movie theater taking notes and trying to get every little detail in our first viewing. So we're going to be doing this one a little bit differently. This is a little bit more of a free-form conversation about the film, and we had originally said that maybe we were trying to keep it spoiler-free. I think we're going to throw that out the window. I think we're just going to go through this thing in its entirety, considering that both of us have watched the original Smashing Machine documentary. We did a full review on that, and there's really a couple of different ways to approach it, so it doesn't make sense for us specifically to try to do spoiler-free. I'm sure there are plenty of other channels that are going to do spoiler-free reviews without a specific focus on mixed martial arts like us. So if you're looking for that type of review, here is your warning. Spoilers from here on out.
Yeah, definitely. I know I said it on the previous episode, but if you guys know me, you know that I do not shut up. So spoilers, they're not getting saved. I mean, and I think the main thing that I'll say right off the bat when it comes to the spoiler talk, and you'll see this very clearly when the movie starts, that if you have seen the documentary of The Smashing Machine, you have seen this movie already. So spoilers, they don't exist because the movie has already been released. If you guys want an actual retelling of it, the original is already there. This is for some reason, this is a dramatized retelling of a story. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no, that is one of the most interesting things about this, is that I'm trying to think of other films that are exactly like this, where it's so close to the source material. What it reminded me of in the moment was, I don't know if you're familiar with The Disaster Artist. That was a film that came out not too long ago.
With Wiseau?
Yes, exactly. The Tommy Wiseau film. the Franco brothers, basically. And what some people had said about that one was that it was essentially an excuse for the two of them, the Franco brothers and their Seth Rogen and that whole cohort, to remake The Room. That was like basically their feeling about it was to do that, so that it was an excuse for them to do that. And they did it in little pieces, but it's not like this. This is so much. There are scenes that are like uncanny valley, eerily close to the similar. I mean, there was one we talked about it in the original review, of course, was the one where he's in the car ordering the drugs like the pizza. I remember that.
Talk about it,
of course, yeah. But I mean, like that, like it was so amazingly one-to-one. I mean, it was like watching the original. It's like even down to where he's driving, it might have been literally the same road.
So I agree with everything you're saying, and I think this is a case for sure of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, not even The Rock anymore, guys, sorry. And he wanted to, this was just a passion project for him, I guess. Like, he genuinely just wanted to be this guy in the movie. Like, the only thing that I can think about as a comparison, you said there's nothing like it. I will tell you the two things. One, we saw a trailer for it before the movie, and it's that stupid ping pong thing. That's probably the only other thing that's like this, because they just want biopics of great people, like retellings of their lives. So there's another one that I think is almost similar, and it came out maybe about 2020, 2021. It was called Air, and it was the story of the first Michael Jordan, shoe. And it was about how it came to fruition. But there was no Michael Jordan in that. It was all just like back office, like designs and how they were going to market it and things like that. It wasn't like a retelling specifically shot by shot. There was like shots where they tried to make it look like it was from that era, and they would recreate, pictures that they saw from people. But again, there was no Michael Jordan in it. It's not like they made a movie about Muhammad Ali and then recreated like, Cassius Clay scenes or whatever you want to say. I don't know. So right. This is just down to everything that you see in this. I'm telling you, if you've seen the original Smashing Machine, you kind of just like, you kind of just are in a daze when you watch some of these scenes. It's kind of weird.
Well, and that leads me very well into my next point. It's actually 2 points. One, you say it's a passion project of The Rock. That is not true. This is a passion project of the writer-director, Benny Safdie. He was the one apparently who spearheaded this entire thing. Now, The Rock, I'm sure, was very passionate about playing the role, and he definitely embodied the role of Mark Kerr for sure. But from what I understand, now, granted, I intentionally did not do a lot of research on this film going into it so that we could be as fresh as possible. But from what little bits and pieces that I have heard, apparently Benny Safdie really pushed to make this happen, as the writer-director, somebody who I have a great deal of respect for, and we can talk a little bit about the direction and the choices that were made there in a little bit. But so apparently it was very much on him to have brought all of this together. So that's number one. Number two, you talk about things like Air. There are plenty of movies that are dramatizations of real world events. That's a different thing. What we're talking about here, though, is a documentary being remade into a completely new dramatized film. And that's where I think the difference is, because you're right. I mean, you talk about the progression of events in the original film and how it's essentially just like vignettes of Mark Kerr's life. Yeah. And that's a lot of what you get here. And again, hitting the nail on the head when you watch this film, this 2025 dramatization, it is almost eerie to see those things translated so one-to-one. Again, there's some different than others. I mean, there's a couple we can talk about that are not exactly one-to-one, but like bits and pieces thrown in there, and some certain scenes that are so very close that it's striking how much they resemble each other.
What I will say, I will give credit where credit is due. They did a damn good job recreating the source material. But with that note being said, as a writer-director, I would like to believe it takes a little more effort to create your own story and idea and plot, rather than just watching the actual footage and just recreating scene from scene. Like, it kind of, now that I say it like that and I think about it, it kind of is a really easy fucking thing to do if you have all of the source material in front of you and your idea is to just do it, but just not different at all. It's very funny. There's actually, I think we'll talk about it in a little bit with The Rock's performance, but there's some times where I think the director was understanding Mark Kerr in the documentary. So he's having The Rock have a certain demeanor towards people and in certain dialogue scenes. And I just think that he was misunderstanding, and I think this is where it comes at, like, he was doing a shot-for-shot remake, but then still also misunderstanding some of the aspects that we were picking up on. You know, there was a lot of scenes that you were talking about, like, you know, art imitates life. You know, there's a lot of things that were in the original documentary that, like, that's just so artistic, the way that just like humans were behaving in there. And we were talking about how it's like that was just raw footage back in the day. Now we're watching it in reverse, where they're filmmaking to make it look like the raw footage aspect, but they're trying to, again, dramatize it. And it's just, I don't think they did as good of a job, now that I think about it, because I've seen it all done with real people, and they've done it better. But it is good. It is good.
So, okay, yeah, I mean, I can see a little bit of our overlap here. But so, okay, I think that there's a couple different ways we need to approach our criticism of it, because we are in a very unique position. We not only have seen the original Smashing Machine documentary that I'm sure at this point in time, a lot of the general audience, even if they've seen it, probably don't remember it. That's certainly not as clear as us having just seen it again. And then also, we are MMA people. You know, we are in this world. We know this ecosystem very well.
We know about Mark Kerr and Mark Coleman very well now. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, exactly. So I think that's like the three versions of it that you have to like approach this criticism with from our angle for people who might be watching our review, is that it's like you have to understand there is source material, there is our individual personal connections to the sport of MMA, and then it's us as film loving individuals on top of that. So like, I think that this is a very specific like type of review here that we're doing, because not everybody who's going to see this film has any of those elements necessarily within them, or may have bits and pieces of them, but not all of them like we do. So like, you know, so when you're saying, yeah, you know, you've seen all of this before and it's like the one-to-one, it's like, yeah, we have, but like, I got to also kind of put myself in the position of a person who's coming into this completely blind, not knowing Mark Kerr, not knowing about Pride, you know, I mean, like there's so many elements that may be completely foreign to people.
When you watch it of the aspect, knowing that people have not seen the documentary, this is the first time that they're going to see it. It goes back to my point of putting a lot of questions and doubt on the writer-director, because I believe truly that the worst parts of this movie were when the director-writer free-handed the shit that we didn't get to see in the documentary. Because there were times that Mark Kerr would be narrating a situation in the documentary and he'd be telling you about something that's going on. Well, the movie doesn't want to have that exposition dump. I mean, they do in most scenes, but in these certain scenes, they want to show what happened on the opposite side of it, rather than just have Mark Kerr tell you about it, which in other scenes, he just tells you about it in the exact same tone and the exact same words that you heard in the documentary. This movie opens with The Rock giving the same monologue that Mark Kerr opened with in the documentary about, you know, you just know when someone's gonna, you know, you can just feel when a person's gonna give up, and when you have the upper hand on them and you just want to, you know, blah, 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 blah. You get that whole thing. And I think the writer, I'm telling you, there were scenes where he just misunderstood Mark Kerr, I think, because he was making Dwayne act a certain way. And I just go ahead.
No, well, so okay. I mean, like, because I'm hearing what you're saying, and we can talk about a couple of those specific incidents for sure. But I think the interesting element is that, as we know, Mark Kerr is very much alive still, and was a part of the process of making this film. So, I mean, how could it really be full-on misunderstanding if he was aware? I'm sure he read the script. I'm sure that he would have had objections if he was misrepresented. So I think that this is the balance that we're trying to have to play here, is like, how much is a misrepresentation based on what we didn't see in the documentary, and how much is actually what was there that just was not expressed in the documentary?
I think I have a perfect explanation, because there are scenes in this where I feel, again, that Mark Kerr was a little misrepresented. And I think if he had a hand in it, which he most likely did, obviously we'll talk about later, you know, I think this was, and maybe I'm just a poor judge of character. When I see Mark Kerr in the documentary, I don't feel that, and I'll give you a specific example. You know, when Dwayne is talking to the Japanese commissions people, he's portraying Mark Kerr as like holding back this like anger for them. Like he's like gritting his teeth like every time they disagree with him kind of deal. And like that is maybe I'm a poor judge of character. Mark Kerr never really felt like I never got like he was just holding back from like strangling these people. It was always soft spoken because he was a nice fucking guy, not like he's trying to manipulate the situation, like get the upper hand. Like I think Mark Kerr with the hand in it, you know, maybe he would tell them like, yeah, you know, I always really wanted to, you know, I never really felt like I was getting this and I always felt a certain way. And maybe he's being a little more down on himself than what I saw. Like I never, in the scenes that The Rock was having like his like outbreaks as Mark Kerr, never once in the documentary is that how it came off. Is that what he was doing?
Yeah, you know, I would definitely agree with you on that. Another great example of that specifically is during the interview portion early in the film when the reporter asks Mark, The Rock, whatever, asks Mark Kerr, like, what would it feel like if you lost? Because up until that point, he had never lost, and he just does not have an answer. You know, I couldn't tell you how it's going to be. And like, you see him like kind of having this like almost internal struggle of like, I can't ever put myself in that position, so I couldn't answer the question. It's like it didn't seem like the same Mark that the documentary had portrayed, like in that regard. Like I think that if Mark Kerr had been asked that exact question in the original documentary, he probably would have had a similar answer, but the earnestness would have been there, as opposed to like, I'm fighting off the instinct to even put myself in that position. It would have just been like, I don't know, I'll come to that conclusion when I come to it, you know. Like, so there's just very like portrayal differences, but I think that you're right. I think that it's probably a mixture of the two, a little bit of conjecture by the director, and then also Mark himself, the real person, saying this is what was deeper inside, even if I'm not portraying it. It's the only thing I could think was the case, because he wouldn't have okayed it, you know?
Yeah, well, I truly do believe, like, you know, it was, as someone, you know, having the internal struggle, he probably felt, you know, he felt a lot worse about what he did than what the actual reality would have, you know, been, probably, at least from what we saw in the documentary. Like, there have been plenty of times where, you know, people challenged him, and it's not like he imposed his, like, size over them. Like, he genuinely got down to an even playing field and had a conversation with them. And that's just not what I feel like Dwayne was given the direction to do. Like, so there's a specific scene where, you know, and steroid use is a big thing in this story. And there's a scene where he's, you know, he's on, you know, steroids, and he's going through, something's happening, and he's kind of nodding off, you know, and he's on the couch.
Well, it's opiates, not steroids specifically.
Whatever you want to say, whatever you. Sorry, something. He's doing something, and he's nodding off on the couch. They recreate this in the movie. This is also in the documentary. And after the scene ends in the movie, he like gets up and lashes out and like rips a door off the hinge, and it's like, I didn't get to see that portion of it in the documentary, nor did it feel like that was ever what Mark Kerr was going to do. I never once in the documentary saw him smash a door. You know, that's Rampage Jackson shit. I mean, we could get into any of that, but this is just not what I saw Mark Kerr representing in a lot of scenes. And I think even towards the end, when he's, you know, he's in his new, he's got his mojo, he's got his chin strap, it's like he's got a whole new asshole vibe to him, that he's just above everybody, that I never felt Mark Kerr himself was actually capable of.
I mean, I hear you on that, but I don't necessarily think that it went to that level, that you're as what you're saying, where it was like he was an asshole necessarily. I think that it's like, if we're saying that, like, you know, he was here, then maybe he was like here, but like he was never like there with the assholeness. You know what I mean? Like, it never like went like, I'm the man now, or any of that kind of stuff. Like,
I mean, you're walking. Like, listen, it's just the way that the director was portraying it. This dude's got a fucking collared shirt on, drinking a beer with a hoop earring in his own house on fight week, and then he smashes it eventually. It's like, yeah, I mean, these are douchebag things to do. I don't know. I mean, I know he's waiting for a party to happen, but then him and Dawn get into it, and we'll get into the relationship that they have. But like, they portrayed Mark Kerr as like the equivalent butting head to Dawn, when in the documentary, that's not what was going. She was leading the charge there, and he was willingly, you know, going with it because he didn't have any other option. You know, there was a lot of things going on in his life. yada yada yada. So
well, that I agree with you 100% on. Is that it was and again, these are things that could have been more true to life behind the scenes that just the original didn't show. But yeah, I mean, but you are right. The level of the dynamic of the relationship between Dawn and Mark was definitely on a more even playing field than how it was presented in the documentary, for sure. So that's an interesting difference there. But I mean, let's take it to the characters a little bit more, because that's a nice segue to it. As far as portrayals go, you have, I'd say, maybe 4 main characters, so to speak, or like 3 main and like 2 secondary.
Yeah. One of them they portray. We'll just get into it. Okay,
yeah,
so the main characters, you have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Mark Kerr.
Right.
You have Emily Blunt as Dawn Kerr, whatever she becomes at the end of the movie. Then you have Ryan Bader playing Mark Coleman. Right. These are your main characters. These are the 3 right here. The 2, one they kind of deceivingly tricked you to believe was one of the main characters. Bas Rutten shows up about 20 minutes left of the movie, basically.
A little bit more than that, but yeah, basically. I mean, second half of the film.
I wouldn't say that, dude. That was pretty far towards the end. But either way. And then the last person, this is going to be a shocker to everybody. It's really funny that this guy is in the movie. Alexander Usyk plays random Russian guy's name. I can't remember.
He plays Igor Vovchanchyn, the main antagonist, so to speak. The clashing figure there. Which
since you bring it up, great. Main antagonist, which is, again, because of this movie and the way that the documentary was set up and the way that this movie is following the documentary, for a main antagonist, you see him 3-4 times in the movie, and like, you're supposed to understand, like, that's the biggest feat right there, but you don't, like, the story doesn't really portray, because Mark Kerr really never, in the documentary, it's not like he just sat around sulking about this Vuchenko dude, it's not like he always was on the mind, like, I gotta get him back, like, I gotta do this and that. So when the movie comes around, they have a fight, Mark Kerr goes on about his life, other shit happens, then they fight, shit goes on, Mark Coleman fight, shit goes on, it's like, It's not revolving around the hero antagonist, like, fight.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Well, because that is the interesting balance that this film plays, considering how close it is to the reality of the documentary, is that they're like, the real antagonist, if you want to even call it an antagonist, is Mark Kerr himself. It's the demons in his life and how he reacts to them and things like that. But like, because of that, there's not really that much of a conflict dynamic throughout most of the film, except for the relationships, and that's really all that it comes down to. In a big way, much like the original, this is a lot about the human element of things. It's not as much about the sports. It's not like a sports documentary or a sports film where the big game, quote unquote, or the big fight is the goal here. It's not leading up to it. We just did Bruised recently, the Halle Berry film Bruised. That's all leading up to a culminating crescendo of a challenge in this form of a fight. This was not that. This is about the humanity of these people and their dynamics with each other.
And that's an interesting aspect to get into as well, because we were questioning if this movie was just going to be a retelling of what we saw, if this was going to have to do, because Mark Kerr was involved. Is he going to actually give more stories or things that they could recreate for the movie? But that's not what happened. And so I don't know. I mean, I forget where I was going with it, but the point is that the plot that we saw in the movie that we questioned, is it really like a roller coaster of events, or is it really amalgamating to something? It's like, it doesn't, and the movie doesn't rectify that. Like, they don't try to change it, which is kind of cool. Like, they just go with it. If I accept that the director just made a movie that already existed as a documentary, like, cool, he did the damn thing and he did exactly what happened in it, but he also didn't like change it to fit like a movie format. So there's no climax. Like, the end of the movie is exactly like the documentary, which is Mark Coleman is the fucking hero. Like,
I mean, at least the winner. But yeah, so, before we start getting into the actual like full on plot events, because we've talked about a good amount of them, or a couple of them at least, back to the actual portrayals of these characters in relation to who they are portraying. What did you think of The Rock as Mark Kerr?
The Rock as Mark Kerr, I thought was damn good. I will tell you guys this. If I, in a million years, thought Dwayne Johnson was going to put a performance on that was resemblance of like Walking Tall or any of the serious films that he kind of had back in the day, even the Tooth Fairy, whatever you want to say, it wasn't like, it was a comedy, but like he was at least putting on a character. I think this right here was really fucking good. From a guy that we doubt his acting ability, who's just a summer blockbuster hit back in 2010s, this guy really put on... He made you believe that he's somebody else. Like, I like that. It was cool. He played a young person, too. It's not like he, you know, when people get old, they got to play old people. Dwayne Johnson says, fuck it. I'm going to play a 29-year-old dude on steroids. And he did.
Yeah. No, I agree. I had thought that he was going to be able to have that level of depth and the humanity that Mark Kerr embodies. And I think he did. He portrayed that pretty well. The interesting element to me was those little extra things, but this is only coming from us knowing the original and knowing the differences. So like having a little bit of difference there as far as like how we think that Mark Kerr would react to certain things versus how the Rock portraying him reacted. Like that's only for people who know that level of difference. But as far as like if you just didn't know anything about the source material, you definitely do come away with the feeling that this is an entirely different person. I mean, you've seen The Rock, what you know about The Rock and all of his various iterations in his career. This is really a departure from all of that, and I think he was very successful in that portrayal.
I definitely agree. Like if you don't see the documentary and you watch this movie, you should feel like you got a good, accurate representation of what this person is. Like sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, I don't really know if he was doing all that. But like this one, I mean, if you are supposed to believe, because like obviously I'm telling you for fact, I watched it on a documentary with him himself doing the shit. So I can tell you that these are accurate events of what happened and accurate accounts. So you should believe me when I tell you that this is a good, accurate representation of what you would have saw if you didn't. And I think The Rock is obviously the forefront of that. He did lead most of the scenes here, and we'll talk about some other people, but he was doing a great fucking job. And I'm surprised. I'll be honest, guys. I'm surprised. But, so...
Fair enough. Yes, I was a little bit more anticipating it, and I'm glad that I was correct about that aspect of it. What I was not anticipating and what I was insanely pleasantly surprised by was Emily Blunt. Now, I don't know much of her filmography. I'm sure that she's a big actress, so I'm sure I've probably seen her in some other things and maybe didn't pick up on it, or I know the name. I didn't necessarily know what I was going to be expecting out of that character in Dawn. I thought she portrayed Dawn so perfectly. It was really uncanny, especially down to the mannerisms. You want to talk about the accuracy from the documentary to this? Like, she had Dawn down to a T in the way that she, like, her inflections, her intonations, with the way that she spoke, like, really very close. Now, the actions of the character, that's another part where we're talking about the differences. There was a little bit of embellishment there for the film version. I think that it all still translates, and I'm sure that there's a lot of that was discussed and brought over from real life events and stuff. It's hard to know all of the truth of all of those situations, as they actually happen in real life. But as far as translating a character from a real person, I thought that she was amazing. I was really blown away by her performance.
Blown away. I mean, she did really good, but I don't know if I necessarily was watching. I mean, she did enhance a lot of the scenes. She brought good things out of The Rock. Like, I thought the scenes that they were together, like, you could truly tell, like, The Rock was putting on a performance about someone that he, like, cares about. And, he didn't really understand what he was supposed to do. Didn't have the words to say it, anything like that. Her on the other hand, like, there was... I think when I was watching her, the main thing that I was focused up on was like the difference that they were making in some of the scenes. Like, because we were watching them and, we had a lot of different comments on things that she would do and the way she was acting. And I think the movie portrayal was good, but the way that they switched the scenes, I think took away from just like, she is kind of fucking batshit crazy. Like, I don't know. I got it, but I also didn't get it too much, in my opinion. I don't know if that makes sense. She wasn't... I don't know. It would and so with the review at the part at the end of the movie where she's going off the deep end or whatever. From the real life account, from what Mark Kerr was talking about, like that sounds horrific. And obviously, you probably shouldn't put that in the movie. But I think that took away the aspect where I was like, yeah, this Emily Blunt girl, she's really fucking crazy. I don't know. It was. There was other people that I feel like I want to talk about more. Let me just say.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I think you definitely should put all of it in the movie if it's as crazy as it was. But I maybe I would agree that like there did seem like because like you get. I know the scene you're talking about, and like in the documentary, you basically get that told to you verbally.
Yes.
So like you kind of can, it's conjecture as to like what exactly the reality was, and then what we ended up getting was relatively tame based on what your mind would conjure up.
The classic, I can't get the pill bottle open, shit like that. But
and then also with the firearm, of course.
Yes.
We talk about that, but I mean, again, it's. The what's developed for the film specifically versus what we got is its own element of it. But if we're just talking about translating that person into a fictionalized version, that's what I give her a lot of credit for, because she sounded just like anytime that she was talking, I was like, that sounds exactly like her.
Mm-hmm. Now there was definitely some good moments with her when obviously the moments that you're supposed to pay attention to when Mark Kerr is there avoiding her. And then she's like, losing it slowly. Like, you could kind of tell that she's like a ticking time bomb for sure. But I think I was missing the end result where I'm like, yo, she, like, bro, smashing a bowl, like, I mean, I'm sure she did a lot worse. She probably threw the bowl at him. Like, so if she would have done that, if I would have seen him have to, hit a move, I'd be like, all right, I get it. But like just throwing the bowl, she did it like 3 times. She broke like 3 bowls in this, but either way. So
well, and that I think overall, and I mean, I don't want to tip the hand too much, but I think that's one of my big takeaways as like for the overarching feel of this film is that like it's almost slightly underwhelming only because it's so true to reality that like real life is not as interesting as the movies sometimes. You know what I mean? Even with this guy who's larger than life in stature, his profession is larger than life, all of these elements, the trappings of it are all very grandiose, but the story itself is kind of small. It's kind of tight. It's kind of within this very boxed in sort of dynamic. The trappings of it are all not very like they're not over the top in any way. And I'm not saying that it has to be, but if you're talking about like a film portrayal that you're supposed to get the feelings that you get out of a movie going experience, I think that it's kind of a very down the line sort of portrayal and experience overall. I tell you, I won. We didn't actually talk about our movie going experiences, but well, yeah, that's the difference.
But
yeah, okay.
What I wanted to say is I wasn't like falling asleep during this movie. Like this movie actually was good enough at keeping me engaged, and I think because there was one scene specifically with Emily Blunt that I want to talk about because it really did like have me thinking like, wow, the director he's trying here, like he's really trying to make you get it. But then I feel like they kind of just followed the script of the documentary. There's one scene, it's after the fight where Mark Kerr gets kneed in the head, and then they get the fight finished, and then they get a no contest or whatever, and he's taking pictures with it was Igor, that's his name?
Igor Vovchanchyn.
So, and they go back there and they're taking photos with him, they're having a good time, talking about, you got me on top of the head, shit like that. So he's like, yo, let's all get a picture, like everybody get in here. And then he hands Dawn the camera and he's like, will you take a picture of us? So she's taking the photo, and you can see her from the side, and like you see a tear run down her face. So she clicks the photo and like wipes it real quick so nobody can see her. I was like, that right there, like you could tell, like it was breaking her heart. She couldn't be in the photo. Like the world didn't revolve around her for that moment, and you could tell like it was just like seeping out of her, and like she had to hide it from everybody and go on. And like that was the moment I was like, interesting things are gonna happen with the filmmaking here. But again, they didn't, because that was a scene we obviously didn't get to see something like that in the raw footage. We see, yada yada yada, but in scenes where we have the raw footage, like where she's at the pool with the knife, it didn't hit like the actual footage, because I don't know. The director didn't understand what we were seeing here, you know? Like, I don't think he was as locked in. I think he was just copy and pasted. Like I said, when the director went freehand on a lot of the scenes that you're supposed to, imagine, they fell flat, I think. And I don't know is this PG-13?
I believe it's R-rated.
Okay. Well, I don't know then. So, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and again, that goes back to the same point of, us having the prior knowledge of the documentary versus the, someone going in fresh. But all right, let's get back to I want to try to at least get out
characters.
of characters. Yeah, let's get back to the characters real quick. Okay, so let's talk about Ryan Bader as Mark Coleman. This to me was one of the most distracting elements of this film.
Oh,
and this is where this is where this specific review is very unique, because we are fans of mixed martial arts first and foremost. So I'm sitting there trying to have Ryan Bader, who is a mixed martial artist as well, portray another mixed martial artist. So I'm seeing both and trying to wrap my head around that at times. And then also, but like within that dynamic, I will say Mark Coleman is not a super expressive guy to begin with. So Ryan Bader not being overly dramatic in his expressions did kind of work for the character, but he's so not expressive that it almost feels like for the film version, maybe you wanted to ramp up that element a little bit.
I am here to say Ryan Bader will be on to more movies, and I will tell you why. There are two things that you can do in a movie where you are portraying someone else, or, take the Joker, for example. When you are playing the Joker, you have two options. Am I going to be one of the older ones? Am I going to be one that already exists? Am I going to use that source material, or am I going to be something different? When Ryan Bader walks on screen and instantly when he starts talking, I said, that ain't Mark Coleman. That ain't Mark. That ain't even close. I mean, he ain't doing it. But when you watch the movie, this dude makes you see that he's doing an original Mark Coleman. Like, I don't know Ryan Bader, the fighter. The only thing I know about Ryan Bader is DC saying, I want the easiest fight in the division. I said, give me Ryan Bader. That's the only thing that I know about this dude. So when he came on screen, I said, doesn't look like Coleman, doesn't sound like Coleman. But by the time the movie was over, I said, Ryan Bader put on a Mark Coleman classic performance, guys. I'm telling you, this dude, you couldn't give me another one. You couldn't give me a better one, I tell you.
Well, it's just that Mark Coleman as a character in this film is just so understated. Now, if that was, I know Benny Safdie, the director. I'm sure that if he wanted more out of him, he would have gotten more. And Ryan Bader as an actor, that I don't know too much aside from this. I think this might be his first role as an actor. If the whole idea was to have him be very understated, just being kind of like this everyman sort of, the dude that you could see having a beer with kind of guy, then that was perfectly fine. Again, I feel like with this type of movie, especially also for what they had this character do that was a little bit different from the original documentary, like there maybe a little bit more emotion at times might have made sense. But again, if the idea was for him to be just sort of like just a even keeled, that's definitely the way that I would describe this character and this portrayal, is even keeled. He did not go high with his emotions. He did not go low with his emotions. He was always dead center, right in the middle. And I would say a very calming presence almost in this film, like throughout all of the dynamics with Dawn, throughout all of the violence of the fights and all that. Anytime that Mark Coleman was on the screen, it was always, I'm your friend. I'm here for you. We're in this together, and that was like the feeling as well as the action.
Yeah, I thought Bader. I don't know. I thought he did as good of a job as an MMA fighter should be able to do, and I think I do agree with your point. The Mark Coleman aspect of it, I do think they were looking for someone who's like, he's just that blue collar guy. He's just a guy that you could see walking down the street. That's what Mark Coleman was. He wasn't an anomaly. He was just a guy that worked really hard. And I think the story showcases that, because throughout all the turns and, you know, dips and turns through Kerr's career, Mark Coleman is just there, stagnant, dedicated, continue to work and keep getting to the levels that he's trying to, while Mark Kerr is going through all these crazy things. And it just so happens that he's his friend, and he's just, you know, he's there, he's a cool dude. What I also want to note about Ryan Bader, and I think this is the most telling difference between Mark Coleman, the documentary, and Mark Coleman in the movie, is that this dude will rock a Nike or Jordan logo in any scene that you want him to. This guy, I'm telling you, every scene, I said, yo, Mark Coleman knows fucking ball. He's got the Jordan cap. He came in with there was one scene that was really funny too, because the sun was glaring on like Coleman's back, and he had a backwards Nike hat. So like you could see the Nike sign just like glowing with the sun rays behind it from his head. It was just like, man, they really wanted this Nike money. It's awesome. But
you know how I know that's true is because I even picked up on the Jordan logo, and that's not something that I was at all looking for. So yeah, you definitely are correct there. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, now that we bring up, it just made me think about it. There's one scene also that I think, when they the actual footage, maybe misunderstood what was happening, or maybe we just were looking too far into it. So it's the scene where Coleman is saying like, hey, like, I want to show you something, and like they go outside and see all the fans, and then Coleman's like, I don't know, you know, he's the one that's like, I don't know what they're doing out there. It's like, dude, you just asked it. Like, you told him to go see him. It's like in the documentary, you were like, come on, let's go see him. But in this one, it was
that one.
Yeah, it was Mark Kerr being like, come on, they're here for us. Like, let's go. You know, so it was a weird kind of switch up. But
and it's like, that's the sometimes the differences are very subtle. There's a couple that are a little bit more glaring, but that was one of the more subtle ones.
We got to talk about the most glaring issue, and it is going into our fourth main character. So if we have anything else about Ryan Bader, say it now.
No, I think that's about it. Go ahead.
Okay, so our fourth main character, which borderline side character, because he shows up very late into the film, portraying himself, you have Mr. Bas Rutten. And he is fun. I mean, he's having a fun time portraying himself with Dwayne Johnson. Like, you know, he's just fucking around with him kind of deal. Training scenes are fine, whatever. I'm not really worried about that. There's one specific scene that I want to talk about. And then you could talk about his performance. His performance was literally just him. I mean, it's not like, it wasn't the craziest stuff ever, because I see clips of Bas Rutten all the time, you know, doing the little bar fight stuff. It's like, yeah, he's literally just him. Like, that's just him. So in this movie, there's one specific scene where he has like a fucking heart attack or something, and his arm's not working, and Mark Kerr gives him opiates. I didn't see that in the documentary, guys. That's a crazy switch up. Did Bas Rutten approve this? Like, tell them all that I was taking that shit with him. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I gotta believe that, right? I mean, he wouldn't, you know, or maybe, who knows? This is one of those crazy things that it's like, you know, how much is real? I mean, it's literally the guy, so it's like, I would assume that's coming from reality.
But like, also with that scene, and the reason I want to bring it up, it has nothing to do with anything. Bas Rutten doesn't get hooked on the shit. He never brings it up again. This was after Mark Kerr had already been to rehab and things. So he's like, it's an old bag, don't worry, I'm not using. And then they just never bring it up again. So why did they add that scene? Was it to you so the audience is like, he's not using it anymore? No way. But if you don't know that actually didn't happen, that he did actually get off of the stuff and he threw all the stuff away and there was no hidden bags or go bags, if that's what we were led to believe from the documentary, him having a go bag now and him telling you I don't do it, brother, I'm not thinking you're not doing it still. Like, you're definitely on the shit if you have a hidden supply of it still. Like, I don't know. And why they had to showcase him giving it to Bas Rutten, weird.
Well, I mean, if I had to guess, I think that the reason would be for the line that Bas says after that, where he's like, "How did you fight on this stuff?" And then Mark was like, "You just get used to it."
Okay,
so
fair.
That would, again, I'm speculating on that, but yeah, it is slightly out of place. And you're right, it does not connect to anything else. So that would be the thing that I would think of with that.
I like that. I actually think that makes a lot of sense, but man, they could have probably figured something out. Like, I don't know. Like, they could have had a doctor say, like, when obviously he has, like, his episode and he ends up in the hospital, they could have had the doctor be like, he could not have been fighting on this amount of drugs. Like, something like that. Like, there's just no way that he should have been fighting while he was hot. Like, they could have just had a passing comment. Movies do it all the fucking time, dude. I didn't need to see Bas Rutten and Mark Kerr shooting up in the gym. Like, I don't know. Like, there's plenty of times, and there's a recreation in this movie of Mark Kerr doing steroids or
very
opiates,
close to the original there.
And they do like the whole shot, verbatim kind of deal, and it's just, that scene is fine. I get that. Show him that he has, this is what he's doing to supplement his body's aches or whatever. But like adding Bas Rutten into the mix, I'm like more question, like, what the fuck were you guys doing in this gym? If you guys just had plenty of stashes of drugs,
that was the time. I mean, I think that part of it doesn't surprise me at all. This is Pride era, bro. I mean, I'm sure that was common throughout all gyms, but no. So I mean, going back to just Bas in this film, the thing that was weird to me, aside from that, the element of that you were talking about there, is just that like Bas playing himself in current era just seemed a little strange, because it's like, granted, I mean, Bas, credit to him, he doesn't look like ancient, I mean, he's obviously older, but like he doesn't look dramatically different because he was always bald, so like that element of it is the same. They kind of touched him up a little bit with the wrinkles and stuff like that, but like it was just a little strange considering that it is just him and he's the only one portraying himself. That I think was the element that was strange to me. It's like you've got all of these other real life people, so I mean, think about this dynamic now. You've got Emily Blunt, who is a film actress portraying a real life girlfriend. You've got The Rock, who is a professional wrestler portraying an MMA fighter. You've got Ryan Bader, who is an MMA fighter portraying an MMA fighter, and you have Bas Rutten, who is portraying himself as a commentator / MMA fighter.
There you go.
This is what I'm saying. It's just like the hodgepodge of these main characters was a little bit strange because, again, he sticks out a little bit in that regard. Now, you could say he was a little bit older at the time that he was with Mark Kerr, just because it was past his time as a fighter himself. He was a commentator. He was doing training and that kind of stuff, as a coach and all that sort of thing. So like it was a little bit past like him as a younger man, but it just, again, felt just a little bit strange. And maybe this is just the MMA knowledge part of me taking over with that aspect of it. So maybe people who are seeing the film for the first time without this frame of reference, maybe it doesn't stick out to them, but just him portraying himself was a little strange with all of the rest of that dynamic.
I think it's because nobody could have done the accent. I
mean, very well could be.
They probably had a casting call and they were like, so are you willing to go bald? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, do the accent. He's like, I can't do all that. But so yes, Bas Rutten. Okay, so speaking of scenes that they obviously freehanded, based on imagination, they kept a lot of scenes that make you wonder, like, why wouldn't you cut that out? So the scene, and I'm glad you brought up him being a commentator / coach, because the scene of him saying, all right, champ, I gotta go, gotta go commentate, I gotta make this money. And then you see him take his shirt off and switch. It's like, you could have done without it. Like the movie was 2 hours and 5 minutes. Could have been 2 hours and 3 minutes. I didn't need to see Bas Rutten take his shirt off and change. There's a shower scene with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson that lasts 4 minutes, but whatever, things like that. It's like, why did you need to keep that specific scene, but you decided to kind of shuffle around the dialogue and stuff with other ones? So
yeah, I mean, that aspect of it didn't really bother me all that much. Like there wasn't too much that they cut out or decided to keep, and I was like, I felt that way about it. Like, because I mean, like once you're like in this film, like once it's like underway and you're like going through the sequence of it, like there weren't that many times where I felt like it would have made much of a difference because of the type of film that it is. So it's like the only thing that you could have done differently to me with this is create more film, like dramatic elements, film elements, things that would have heightened it as a film, as opposed to going as down the line as they did. But like, if the intention, which obviously it was to keep it as close to the documentary as possible, then I really didn't feel like they did a bad job of porting things over and deciding what to keep and what not. There were only a couple of scenes really that like were completely made up for this film.
I'll tell you one. I'll give you one right here that stuck out that annoyed me. And this is actually a scene that I'll give credit to. In this scene, you can specifically see that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he mastered the way Mark Kerr walks. And it's kind of distinct. I mean, it looks a little, he hobbles around a kind of bit. So there's a scene early in the movie. He's in this big old mansion, and I think it's an establishing shot so you realize just like how wealthy he is kind of deal. He's walking around the house. He goes in one closet, looks, doesn't find anything, walks out. It's a one shot too. Like this is just the camera following him through the house. He goes to another closet, looks, doesn't find anything, goes to a third closet in a third room to find his drugs. And then that's when he gets the little shoot up scene. And it's like, what were you trying to portray there? If like you thought it was so cool to do the one take, I'm pretty sure it was a one shot. I'm pretty sure it was just him walking through the house. And yeah, maybe it was just to show you guys like that he could walk like him. I don't know, but you could have just done one closet of him looking around and shuffling around. Like I didn't need to see him walk 4 miles in his own house just to get that. Like I don't know. Like scenes like that you could have cut it a little shorter. Like I mean, the thought process was a little more expansive for a scene of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson walking than it should have been. And, you know, you see, I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
I think you're being a little hypercritical on these certain things. We get hung up on these kind of things a little bit, maybe more than other people might. But fair enough if that's how you feel about it. You know what I mean? The pacing of the film. You know, you definitely like things to be like snappy. I think so. It's like sometimes if you're lingering a little bit too long, but maybe there's a dramatic reason for that. You know, I mean, I don't know. I like maybe the idea that he possibly has drugs in so many places is what they were trying to portray.
That's, you know, I was sitting here thinking like, and I think that's where I was getting caught up too. Cause like after the scene has happened, I'm like, so what was the idea? Was it to show that Don is like switching his hiding spots, or he doesn't even know where he's been hiding them anymore because he's doing so much of them? Like, what was the scene? Like every scene should have a purpose to tell the audience something. What was I supposed to be told in the scene of him walking through his house looking for the drugs? The only thing I took away is he has drugs. I mean, you could have done that in less amount of rooms and closets to search for. That's the only thing that I'm making the point about. Like, but
all right, well, fair. So yeah, then I mean, I guess then from a narrative stance, considering that we're not going to necessarily go through each and every scene of this film, let's talk about a little bit of the
fourth character. We didn't get to him.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, we can do that. Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about Alexander Usyk as Igor Vovchanchyn. I thought he was fine. I mean, he doesn't really have a lot of speaking to do, so you know, he speaks in Russian in the film. He's got his little translator lady, which was true to life in the documentary as well. She was a little bit more here than in the documentary, but it made sense for all of that. And I thought it was good. It was interesting to see him try to portray a mixed martial artist, considering that he's a boxer, you know, primarily, entirely. Mm-hmm. So that was an interesting element of it. I thought he moved pretty well as far as the combat scenes went. And as far as acting goes, I mean, it was not a super meaty part in the beginning, so it was kind of just cool to see him try to do that, I guess. There really wasn't too much to say about him, I don't think.
I think it was a decent performance from Usyk, but I think he has an expression that he wears on his face that is like, I mean, you could tell like that could be a James Bond villain. Like he just looks crazy. He's got the earring, you know, everything that he does, it's something about him. Like, so when you watch him on film, it's like he may not be doing the best, but when you see him smile and you see him having fun, you know, poking Mark Kerr, like he's doing the thing. He's doing it. And then he walk out and he's doing his punches, like, and it's just like he's just playing a character, and it's really good, I thought. So
yeah, it was fun. It was fine. Yeah, I had no problem with it at all. And you know, because it's like one of those things that it's like a little bit of a wink to the combat sports people that he even is that character. And for that aspect of it, you know, I didn't think it took away from anything dramatically. So yeah, I was completely okay with it. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's about last on Usyk.
As far as like main characters go, I'm sure that there might be some other little minor things here and there, but
I wanted to, speaking of characters, I don't know if I'm 100% certain, but it panned on this random character in sparring just like once. I'm pretty sure it was Court McGee, and I could be wrong. I think Court McGee was in this movie for one particular scene, but I
could have been.
Catch that. So,
well, I mean, a couple of, at least, there might have been more than one, but the one that I picked up on was, did you recognize Gary Copeland as the referee in there at one point towards the end?
I did not see Gary Copeland.
I would have thought that the stature would have given him away immediately, but in the final fight with Fujita, that's Gary Copeland as the referee. So another little connection there. I'm sure that there were a couple of those, little throwaway bit parts for combat sports people and stuff. So that was interesting too. You could tell that this director was wanting to do right by that aspect of things, I believe. I definitely don't think that this was, there are times when director for hire kind of deals would just be like, oh, we're doing a movie, it's about this thing, and I'm just going to do it which way I feel like it. You could definitely tell that, like, this director and writer was like, I want to do right by the source material and the culture that it embodies. So I give him some credit for that too.
100%.
So, all right. So, talking about a couple of the differences here, we talked a little bit about the first one that stands out to me. Well, go ahead. What?
No, I'm Checkmate is in the chat going crazy. Court McGee is in it, and there's a ton of Ohio combat sports.
Yeah, there you go. There's another one that
shout out.
Sure. Hey, shout out to Checkmate. Yeah, I don't even have the chat open. Shout out to everybody who's hanging out with us in the chat.
100%.
Appreciate all you guys. One that reminded me though. Speaking of Ohio sports, they talk. I literally just was talking about the director doing right by combat sports, yet conspicuously to me, and as knowing the original, decided that to know Kevin Randleman, and when that one little scene of Mark Coleman doing the wrestling when he's at Ohio State. He's doing it with a white guy.
Yep.
Not Kevin Randleman, or not a lookalike for Kevin Randleman. So I thought that was a little bit of like a why. I didn't get that aspect of things, but I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I figured that dude probably would have been some sort of cameo, because I was like, I don't remember that looking like the person that he was wrestling.
Yeah, or at least get somebody to do a tribute to Kevin Randleman, who's of course passed away since then. So I mean, that would have been a nice little.
I didn't even know that. That's fucked up then. Damn.
Oh yeah, Kevin Randleman's been passed for a while. So yeah, that's unfortunate. That was one of the only ones where I was like, man, that's a little odd and unfortunate there. But so there was that. That also kind of leads me into one of my other changes that I thought was noticeable, knowing the original documentary, was that. They completely cut out our WorldCom guy, our telephone salesman guy, and the other buddy. Because if you recall,
yes.
in the hospital, this was one of the more major differences I'd say between the documentary and this film is that in the film, it's Mark Coleman that goes to talk to Mark Kerr in the hospital after he's had his overdose, when in real life it was two of Mark Kerr's best friends, and so that's neither of which were Mark Coleman at that point.
Yeah, and I kind of understand that change, because in the documentary it really just throws you two new characters. They're just like, I've known him for a lifetime. We used to wrestle, and I'm just I'm in New York now, just making calls all day. And then he's like, and then you see the scene of them in the hospital, and like what real human connection can do is it can make you understand instantly, like, these dudes, they care about him, and you only had to know one scene about who this guy is, and then once you see them connecting with him, you're like, oh, okay, well, these two, they bond, like, they care about each other, kind of deal. In a movie, you obviously have to introduce the character. You have to have a set, like, who is he? What's he here for? What is he going to be? That doesn't happen in the documentary. You see these dudes come to his aid, pick him up when he needed him most, and then they're gone. And like, that's just, that happens. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I thought that it wasn't a necessarily bad change, because obviously we're trying to create a dynamic with a best friend situation between Coleman and Kerr. So I thought that was an okay change overall. I think a little bit more of the dramatic flair stuff as far as differences go, probably in the fighting. That was, you mentioned about the scene where he punches through the door. That was a pretty dramatic one, I would say. This is after Mark.
There was two door breaks in this, by the way.
What was the other door break?
He did.
Oh, yeah, when he broke through the door to get to Donna. Yes, that is true. Yes, that is the second one. The first one was after his loss to Vovchanchyn. It certainly heightened the tension of the relationship. But like you'd said earlier, it was like that. Those were the types of moments that like evened the playing field between him and Dawn. So dramatically, I would like to talk to somebody who doesn't know the documentary to like see their impression of those kinds of things, maybe like, you know, see like how that plays to a general audience, because like it was not bad thematically to me. Just knowing what we did not see in the documentary, it was definitely a heightening that we didn't get from that.
I think I read it more in the movie as like, man, they're trying to make it seem like this is a really dysfunctional couple. But I think in the documentary, they made Mark more of a victim than I think maybe we want to believe that he's not. I guess, like, I don't know. I want to believe that Mark Kerr's a little less innocent in the case because he's literally a man who was getting, you know, verbally, you know, mentally abused by his spouse. He's also physically abusing, you know, steroids and opiates, whatever you want to say. A lot of things can happen, but I never read it as like, yeah, he's the other end to this sword here. Like I always felt like he was just gonna end. He just endured it, you know. He just took it in, and nothing really came of it. You know, maybe they cut the cameras off, but I assume if we saw everything else in the documentary, saw this dude sticking a goddamn needle in his arm, him punching a hole in a wall or something, probably isn't the craziest thing. Because then that would enhance, like, this is what steroid. Like, maybe they were pushing a roid rage thing at the time. If we would have seen something like that, but they didn't. I never felt that was the outcome that I was getting from Mark Kerr in those situations. I always felt like he was just gonna, you know, endure the situation.
Yeah, definitely. So another thing that was added for this film that I actually thought was pretty good as far as giving you context to the relationship in a very subtle way. There's a scene of them at a carnival. Do you recall this scene?
Fucking dumb. Oh, dude. That free-handing the scenes, man. This one here.
See, that's what I thought initially, but like thinking about it a little bit deeper, I kind of think that it was okay, because I think what it was showing was the difference in the type of people that Dawn and Mark Kerr are, because Mark Kerr is very measured, he's very subdued generally, he's got, you know, tries to keep a very calm demeanor, and like those flare-ups like what we were just talking about are only brought out of him by Dawn, basically. So like I think that because basically what happens in the scene is that they're at a carnival and Dawn wants to ride the Gravitron ride, and Mark won't ride it because he has stomach issues and it'll affect his stomach. So he stays off of the ride. She rides it. She ends up having a good time on the ride. And I think that was showing like Dawn is a little bit more of a free spirit. Dawn is somebody who takes chances. Dawn is a little bit more like she's a little bit less cautious and measured than Mark is. And that shows the friction between them. I think that's what it was trying to portray. Now, if you want to argue that the inclusion in the film was, you know, not great, then I mean that's your interpretation of it. But as I have thought about it and kind of like molded over, I'm actually okay with it.
It was just a really funny scene. I think it was supposed to be like a little comedic relief, like, oh, my tummy kind of hurts. Like, is it gonna be okay? He's like, brother, you shouldn't be riding this one. You know, stupid kind of deal. Like, and then, you know, she has him hold everything, so he's standing outside the thing just like waiting, and it's going on, and then there's multiple scenes of her in it, like she's having fun, you know, and then she like scoots up so she can have her legs up, and then by the time she's like sideways, like too much fun having on here. Like, I get it.
Well, but that's the point though, right? Is that it's like, you know, he's out there not having fun, she is having fun, so it's like, you know, it shows the differences of the personality and why they are clashing.
I get it. I in the moment, like, I think I do feel what you were explaining it, like, as I was supposed to, like, read it. But again, when I've already seen 15 other scenes that are just straight ripped from the thing, when you just start making up shit, I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? This ain't even what did I miss pages or something in here? Like, what happened? Did we miss an episode? Was there a 3-parter here that they went to the fair in between? So things like that. It's not like, I mean, it's just funny to me. Like, they really, the best they got, the best they had for filler in this story, they were like, we need him to have IBS. We need him to have IBS. And like, I don't know, it's just really funny to me. But I'm a nitpicker. I'm a hater, man.
Definitely that. And also that, you got to also try to divorce yourself from having seen the original. That's the big difference here. I mean, I guess that is part of why we're doing this, is to point those things out. So it's, fair in this assessment, but like for someone who has not seen the original documentary, it is like contextual, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of context, I wanted to bring up one of the other, the largest piece. I mean, there are plenty of them throughout the film that we could go through all of them, whatever. Maybe we'll do a more in-depth breakdown at some future time. But for the purposes of this, snap review the day after kind of thing, one other piece of context that was added that I do think was important to this as a film, but maybe didn't accomplish it as strongly as you might have wanted it to, was in the finale. So during the final fight, or Mark Kerr's final fight, he's fighting Fujita, and he's having some success early. Of course, this is all real to life, and then the tides turn, and he's getting kneed in the side, and he's getting kneed pretty heavily until the fight is finally stopped. Mark Kerr loses the fight, and what they did in this moment is during him getting kneed, they had flashes of all of these negative aspects of his life to show you why, in theory at least, this is what you're supposed to take away from it, is that, these are the demons that are contributing to him ultimately losing this fight. And I think that from a narrative standpoint, that makes sense to do. I just don't know if it necessarily accomplished that in the grand scheme of things. I don't know. What's your opinion about that?
I don't know. The grand scheme of things, this one was just, I don't even know, dude. This is really hard because the way that the story is set up, especially towards the ending sequence with like the final fight that you're talking about, and even after, it's like it's spliced in for you to like understand that his story's like closing in to the, but the rest of it, like Mark Kerr or Mark Coleman stuff, I don't know. And even in the documentary, you have that. It's like Mark Coleman kind of just steals the end of the show here, and the movie just allows that to happen, just like the documentary does. They don't like, with the flashbacks and stuff, like they don't make a big moment of like he lost everything and he's feeling like the sorrow from everything that was weighing down on him. He just goes, gets his chin stitched, and play his happy song while Coleman wins. It's like the same unresolved feelings that I think like they just didn't tap into it anymore. It's like they just turned the camera off. They're like, all right, we got everything we need, man. Appreciate you. Like they didn't bother to ask like any additional questions in the original documentary. So the movie is not showcasing anything about how Kerr is feeling after, losing in the tournament. Now he has to witness his best friend do it. Like that would have been cool if he would have got to showcase that. Like, I'm really happy for him. Like, we don't see that. He just kind of rides off into the sunset, gives him a high five, and like that's mostly all their friendship has ever been. But in a movie, you're waiting for like that payoff. Like you're waiting for him, like to be like, he's riding off into the sunset now. Like he's figured it out. He's overcome all the things that were bringing him the flashbacks and the fight. He's put it all behind him. But like, again, just like the documentary, that doesn't happen. And we see that they have to wrap it up a different way, kind of just like, because it just ends. Like the story ends. I don't know if Mark Kerr just decided he didn't want to be filmed anymore after this, because what? I mean, well,
no, I mean, I because I'm agreeing with the with like I think they kind of tried to, but like I don't know. I mean, if that's the takeaway from you, then I don't think that they accomplished it, because when you talked about the shower scene at the end there, I think that was the attempt, was because he's kind of laughing in the shower a little bit, like he's laughing to himself, and like I kind of had mixed reads of that. Like I didn't really know exactly what they were trying to say with that. Like it was like, man, I lost, but I'm okay with it. That's what I'm saying. Like I was trying to figure out exactly what him laughing to himself was trying to convey to the audience. Like, man, isn't life funny is basically what I ultimately took away from it. But like, I don't know if that was ultimately very satisfying.
Well, and then because at the end, like the way that they're supposed to show you that like, oh, he's overcome everything, like he's good, is just like 50 years later, he's just grocery shopping.
Well, like, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, that that aspect. I want to let's save that for just a second, because what I did want to come back to one point. The going back to Mark Coleman and
Okay.
the divergence there from the original
Yes.
documentary, I think that this film actually downplays Coleman a lot more than the documentary did.
Mhm.
But then because of that, the ultimate conclusion with him winning the Grand Prix is almost a little bit less satisfying in the film version, because like we don't really get to know Mark Coleman very well in this film. Like we get it bits and pieces. We hear him in interviews occasionally talking, and as I said, Ryan Bader's portrayal is very even keeled, very even toned. So it's like you don't get a lot of personality out of him. So like once he finally wins the tournament and he's all happy and he's elated and he's backstage and he's kind of holding on to the belt and he's just like letting it all sink in and stuff, it almost rang slightly hollow just because we don't know him that well. This film was very much centered on Mark Kerr, which was a criticism you had of the original documentary, is that it was really the Kerr Coleman story. This was a lot more Mark Kerr, but then I think because of that, it took a little bit away from the Coleman aspect of the win, which like, I don't know how that reads to an audience either.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying on that one. And it sucks because like when I watched the documentary, at the end of it, I said, yeah, this Coleman guy, I mean, they should have made a fucking two-parter about him, like, golly. But he didn't get to steal the show in the way that, like, the plot was paying it off to the audience, that, like, oh, Coleman is getting what he worked this entire time for. Because he's just sitting here talking about it. He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna, hang out, have fun, and I win, So by the time he wins, it's like, well, yeah, he's always been winning. It's like we never saw him actually have to struggle, but when you watch the documentary and you see like some of the times that he's had to fight and he wasn't winning and like he had to actually overcome adversity, and with Mark Kerr being like his friend, and like you actually see that there's just like traumatic things that obviously the person Mark Coleman would have to like think about. Like his buddy was just in the hospital and now he's got to go fight again and he wants to continue on to the tournament, and I just don't think that they had the emotional payoff for Mark Coleman that I was supposed to be like, yeah, fuck yeah, Mark Coleman. But at the end, like, you're just seeing, they're sharing the screen, basically. They're going back and forth between what Kerr's doing and what Coleman's doing, which is what the documentary does. But, again, they're not paying it off for Mark Coleman to actually have, like, a payoff for the audience. It's like, all right, he won, but, Mark Kerr's in the shower. So, he's laughing to himself, I guess.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's a pretty similar assessment of how I was looking at it as well. So, I guess that's one of those things I would like to talk to someone who's just watching this, not having the frame of reference that we have to see how it reads with like a general audience. But that's how I guess both of us are taking it away. So let's circle back though, because I'm glad that you brought it up. A good way to lead into it. If there is any major criticism I have of this film, it is the very, very end, because this is it was a little bit of an odd way to cap off an otherwise very grounded film up until the literal end of the film, where we transition into Mark Kerr, the actual Mark Kerr, and he's in a grocery store, grocery shopping. I get that part. Oh, he's just an average guy now, and it's trying to, there's a text that'll come up to bookend everything, saying, oh, people know the big stars of today, but this is one of the pioneers of the sport, and it's showing that he's just an average guy like you and me. But then at the very, very end, the real Mark Kerr kind of looks at the camera and is just like, thanks for watching, guys. Yeah, he does. He's like a waves and fade
it's
out
like
and
the
wave.
Tunes just went whoop.
Yeah. It just felt very odd. It was a really weird way to end this otherwise very grounded film. And I get, it's like you could say, like, had it been a device like the curtain opening up and then the curtain closing, it'd been like, okay, that would have been a little bit slightly hacky, and
he walked out on stage like, hey, I appreciate everybody for watching.
Yeah, like all like him and The Rock and Emily
Yeah.
Blunt all come out and do the bow or something like that. Like, it almost felt like along those lines. That's why it was so glaring and out of place in this film. And it just was like it just felt like a very odd way to end this otherwise grounded piece.
I can't believe that stuck out to you, because I genuinely, as soon as I saw it, I typed in the Discord, I said, no fucking way they broke the fourth wall. Like, because it's so funny, because like it's like, the movie ends, Mark Kerr is just, I forget, he's in the shower or something. He got his chin stitched up, whatever it is. and then, you know, goes to black, and then it comes and it's modern day Mark Kerr. It's like, okay, this is the real guy. He's just pushing a shopping cart, you know, grabbing some stuff, checking out. Real nice guy, like as always, you know, talking to the cashier, you know, hope you're having a good day, whatever you want to say. Then he goes outside, puts it in his truck. That's hope. It closes on you, but like, dude, it was really funny the way that he just like, have a good day, y'all, appreciate you, and then just got in his car and drove off. But the thing about the text that pops up on the screen is one of them says, you know, people don't know their names, you know, but this guy, I forget what it said. I'm trying to elaborate.
It said that
what Mark Kerr did, people make millions now, and everyone knows their name,
right?
And then it's like his name is Mark Kerr,
Right.
and like, a really cringe and corny way to end it, but I also thought, like, millions, huh? Millions! We're making millions now is what we're going to advertise this as. I've seen a dude make $12,000 to get choked out in the first round. Like, so...
Yeah. I mean, that aspect of it, true. I mean, you know, the little hyperbolic with the payouts, perhaps. But, yeah, I mean, you know, the idea of it, because you want to try to be succinct with the on-screen text, I guess. So it's like, you could say that it's a little bit cliche, perhaps, but the whole concept was that it's like, you know, there are people out there making millions and are international superstars, but there are the true pioneers of the sport. He's one of them. It's Mark Kerr. This was his story. Yeah, that aspect didn't really bother me as much as the fourth wall break and the ride off into the sunset moment.
I'll tell you what really bothered me, and it's a two-parter, actually. So I know you remember that I was pretty confident and adamant that they were going to somehow include the scene with Mark Coleman saving his family from the burning building. And I'm not saying it in a way that I wanted to see that. Like, I need to see it, but I figured, why not take the opportunity to add an action scene to your movie or whatever? And I thought this was going to be the time. What frustrated me, not only did we not get it, we got an end credit scene where we see the current day Mark Kerr as a normal average day person with a text that says, he's just a normal guy, he just go blah, 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 blah. Where was the Coleman? Why didn't we get one of Coleman? You could have had a text that says he saved his fucking family in a fire 20 fucking days ago. You know, whatever you want to say, why didn't he get a little ending, little cap off? I mean, I'm sure we could have seen him sitting in a fucking lazy boy and been like, there he is, and that's our guy right there.
I think you want to know the real reason? I think that the real reason is because Ryan Bader looks nothing like Mark Coleman.
You know,
because you know that's the thing. I mean, like when you see the transition, because I thought what I thought was okay. I'll tell you when I'm in the theater, right? When I saw the transition to current day Mark Kerr, what I thought was going to be happening was that this was going to be like the time leap, or 20 years later, and that it was supposed to just be part of the movie still, like that it was just going to be a continuation of what we had already been seeing, that now it's just, this is what he looks like now, and now he's doing his thing or whatever. And then I find out that it's like this kind of vignette that's supposed to be aside from everything else that we had just saw. But like up until that point, like with that as like the understanding, I was like, that actually is okay, because The Rock does look enough like him that the real life version of him does look like enough like an older version of that it would make sense. If they had tried to do the same thing with Coleman, I don't think it would have read.
I think you're incorrect, because the way that I'll say it is, Mark Kerr currently, you would never imagine a younger version of him as what he looked like, unless you know what he looked like, So when you think of, like, when you're watching this movie and you have no idea what Mark Kerr looked like, I wouldn't say that The Rock withered down into what Mark Kerr looks like now. I wouldn't say I can envision that, because I don't know. Like, that old man that I see with Mark Kerr, if I saw him on the street, I would never be like, in his prime, dude, he looked like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Like, so I don't agree with it, because I don't necessarily think that.
But enough in the face, though.
I mean, I guess. I mean, they're both the same skin tone, so you can go with it. Like,
that's what I'm saying about Coleman, though. Is like, no matter what stature or physique or whatever.
Angle,
I mean, Ryan Bader's facial structure just does not look like Mark Coleman. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I agree with that. But at that point, I don't think people, if I don't know, I just think
I get where you're coming from,
Yeah.
though. It's like you would have just gone with it if it had been that. So, but yeah, no, I would have been okay with it if they had done that for him. It would have been fine. They
tell
could
you
have done
another
side by side with everybody.
well, no, I tell you the reason why they didn't do it for everybody is because they would have been. Is fucking sure because
Right.
So I don't know. They told you the same story at the end of the movie that they did in the documentary. Mark Kerr and Dawn got married for 6 years, had a son, blah blah blah. It's like, did you care about? Could have told me. I don't know the information on. Recap that. Like, it could have just ended the movie and either that they moved on with their lives or anything, or show like the current day Mark Kerr and, like, you know, bring it up again. Like, the movie could have just ended before I got all that information, probably. But that's just,
well, I that goes back to, I think, the overarching point. Whoa, did we lose Chase? I guess we lost Chase. Did we lose me? Am I still on? Okay, looks like we might have lost Chase, but maybe he'll pop back on in a second here. To expand upon the point that he was just making, that goes back to, here we go. 1 second, there we go. Get Chase back here.
Was it me? Oh my goodness, it was me. I was talking shit about your internet.
Yeah, no. You've been kind of breaking up a little bit. I think I'm going to look at the VOD and see how all that plays out. But you know, yeah, just to kind of touch on the point that you were making there. I think that this is like the overarching point yet again of like why this as a story, like the film version of this had the opportunity to like dramatize and filmicize it, so to speak. I don't know what the right word for that would be, but like translate this story into a film that has the filmmaking aspects that give you more like that make it more compelling, to be perfectly honest. Now, I'm not saying, you know, I love the original documentary, and of course, you know how I feel about it in relation to mixed martial arts and everything, but like as a story by itself, like let's take out the mixed martial arts aspect of it. Like you take out the MMA and like just say that this guy was I don't know, like an inventor or a painter or, you know, a musician, like you could make the profession anything that you want to make it. The core story, I don't know if it's overly compelling to people, and if you don't dramatize the Smashing Machine documentary more than what it did with this film, I don't know if people are going to necessarily come away from it thinking that, wow, this was such an amazing story, because it's actually at its core a very small and basic story.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the movie, they say it takes place between 1997 and 2000.
Right.
So that, I mean, 3 years you got for this movie, and most of it happens like in the first portion of it, you know. So stuff that's like the second half of, I believe, like this or some shit like that. But again, he just decided he didn't want a documentary crew around him anymore. I don't know where Mark Kerr lost the inspiration that this was going to be this was lost archives right here that we saw in a documentary, and it was genuinely really cool to see like a time capsule for that era. And the fact that he didn't continue on with the film documentary and continue with the crew, and maybe it was just an individual project from somebody else who wanted just that, you know, once the tournament was over, we're done, we're leaving, like, that we could have had, which could have led to that would make them doing the fucking job for the director writer. I don't know why he wanted and why he specifically needed a movie that already existed to make a movie with. Like, if he would have made an original Smashing Machine type of, you know, roller coaster, same story beats ish, but do a lot of different stuff, I would have went with it. But the fact that most of the good scenes are specifically ripped from the documentary, and most of the scenes that I did not like are the ones that were free-handed. I don't know if that's, maybe I'm just being an ass, but like, I just don't, I'm not into it, you know? I don't know.
All right, but and again, I think it's because of the frame of reference that you have, and I think that also kind of answers the question as to why he thought that it would be a good idea. Is probably because the Smashing Machine documentary is very old at this point. It's not known by a lot of people, so it reintroduces the story to more people, and especially with the popularity of the sport now, it's an era of the sport that even people who are current fans might not be as familiar with.
I'll tell you one specific scene where I think, again, this is the writer had to be like, he had to do something, and I think he was just not on his A game, I guess, because when you're watching the documentary, and there's a scene where Mark Kerr is in the hospital, and it opens with him talking with an older woman, and he's explaining, like, this is martial arts, this is what I do, we don't hate each other, and you do get that scene in the movie, but in a movie, you can't just open a scene with him talking already. You have to establish that he's all beat up or whatever, so he's got to tell her, you're looking at my black eyes, huh?
Yeah.
I'm okay. And then he's looking at the kid or whatever, and the kid's like walks up with his paper. She's like, I think you're off. And he's like, no fighting. Could the director not have done anything better than tell me that the kid he's a fan, like he knows what I'm talking about, he likes martial arts, he knows what martial arts is, like, I don't know. So I thought that scene, had the director been able to make something, that scene could have been really fun and compelling, because in the original documentary, you learn so much about Mark Kerr in that scene right there alone. You learn he loves martial arts. He's very soft-spoken to old people, senior citizens. He respects his elders. He's in the hospital. He doesn't hate people that he fights. There's just so much about the character that you learn from Mark Kerr in just one single sitting. And the movie flopped hard in that. Like, when that scene came up, I'm like, this is going to be a good one. Like, from what we saw before, I was like, they're going to fucking cook right here. They surely should. Like, I want to, and he starts doing the little speech, and then they cut it short, and then it's like, no fighting, and I'm like, fuck it, are you fucking for real? Like,
yeah, I think that's also a part where having seen the original documentary is almost a curse on us, because another one of that was the intervention in the hospital scene for me, not even regarding the not having the two friends there, but like when Coleman, Ryan Bader Coleman is talking to him about why he's there and everything. Like, the pacing of it was just a little strange, because they're talking, tell me what happened, and he's giving this detailed account of like all of the things that happened as far as the overdose went and everything, and then Ryan Bader Coleman just says, you got to stop, and then The Rock just instantly busts out with the tears, and it was the pacing was just a little bit weird, and like in the documentary it like feels more natural because it is natural. It's real,
exactly.
So yeah, there were definitely a couple of times like that where, like, because sometimes it was so down the line exactly correct to what the reality was, and then other times it was a very, very close facsimile to reality, but there were little tiny details that were different that made it just a little bit less satisfying knowing the original.
I'll give you another example. If I were the writer-director and I was tasked with a scene, right? So in the documentary, you don't get to see Mark Kerr put himself in rehab. You don't see him go do that. The documentary crew's not there for that. Obviously, what it seems like is he just went and did that shit on his own. I got to be done with it. I got to go.
But you get the text. You see it in like text form.
But in the documentary, you get to see him coming out of rehab. Like, that's the shot, is like he's coming home, like, okay, he's been away, he's getting help, like, you understand that watching it. But then in the movie, you obviously, you have to cater to the audience, like, where was he, where's he has to come back from, so you have to send him to rehab, so you have the shot of him going to rehab first, and then you get the shot of him coming back, and it's like, you couldn't have made it more interesting than him walking in and walking out. Like, you couldn't have set it up like, where's Mark? Like, Dawn wakes up in the morning, she's like, where's fucking Mark? And he left a note or something like, I'll be back in 3 months, I gotta do rehab, something like that. I don't know. I'm just whatever.
Yeah. All right, well, fair enough. Let's change course, because we've been talking about the writing and the differences between the documentary and the film a lot. Let's talk a little bit about the direction of this film, because I do think that if the writing had elements of it that were a little less than satisfying from our specific perspective, I did think the direction of this film was very good. I liked the. Also, this is Benny Safdie is the writer, director, and also the editor of this film. So really, everything in this movie kind of falls on him creatively. I thought that there were some interesting choices with the direction, specifically also with the editing. I liked first of all the look of this film. I thought, for me specifically, and to my taste, I loved it because it like had the VHS kind of grain to it, and a lot of the times it really like transported you back to like the early 2000s, late 90s kind of aesthetic at portions, which, you know, speaking to my sensibilities, I love very much. But there were also there was odd sound layering in this film that I don't know if it was like a problem for other people. I thought it was an interesting choice, but I could also see it maybe being a little bit problematic, where like there were times in this movie, specifically one time stuck out to me. There were a couple of them, but one was specific where like it was the scene in the gym where she's like stretching him out, and they had that little like kind of cutesy like flirtatious sort of thing where she's like stretching his leg, and they get a little you know, sexual about it or whatever. But like they will have sound, they'll have music from the gym, like the gym's normal atmospheric music, the diegetic music of the film, and then they'll also layer sort of like kind of atmospheric like soundscape elements on top of it.
Ambiance.
Yeah, ambiance music, exactly. Like, you know, and it's almost like Philip Glassy sort of like minimalist music at times, where it's just like like that sort of thing. Like it's not like actual like score, it's just like kind of understated like tonality sort of things going on there. So I mean, to me, I thought it was interesting and kind of unique, but I don't know if that read for everybody.
That is something that I did notice, but I didn't remember until you said it. There's a lot of scenes where you're supposed to get the like, oh, they're like a dancey kind of couple. Like they just got music playing through the house. Like, because every scene that they're talking to each other, like in a crowded area or in their own home, there's music that you can hear every word.
Yeah, or like television was on a lot too. You could hear television going also.
Yeah, the news playing and shit was definitely one of them too. Yeah, but it was weird because it wasn't just like you could hear everything that they were saying, but you were also hearing the dialogue. It was kind of a weird, I agree. I don't remember what was so different about it, but there was just, it was doing good for my ADHD, I think. I was able to just drown out all that other shit they were doing, but I was toned into the conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I thought the direction of the film was pretty good. I mean, definitely the acting and the performances were fine. The specific choices as far as like direction and pace, it certainly did not feel 2 hours to me. I mean, like it definitely moved well enough. Granted, you know, within the same pacing of the documentary going into this with a little extra, it had a framework to work off of. But like, I was actually pretty satisfied with the direction overall. I thought that there were times, like you talked about the beginning of the film, there was a lot condensed into that very early part that like had bits and pieces of other things from the documentary that I thought worked well as establishment. So like, I thought that the beats were pretty good in this movie overall. I was pretty okay with the overall direction, the aesthetics, and all of those aspects.
I think that's actually a perfect segue for what I should have got to at the beginning, but since we're talking about the pacing and what this movie was able to do for my attention span, I was watching this movie at 10 p.m. on Thursday night after a full day of work. I had to wait 2 hours after work, and then I had to go to the theater and wait an extra 30 minutes until the movie actually started. So I didn't get home until about 1:30 from this movie, and what I will say, I did not fall asleep. I yawned, I think, but I didn't, like, bro, I was having a good time. Like, I was locked in for the movie. I don't know if in my mind it's like, I paid for a ticket, you know, I'm here, I got to get it done. I'm not just going to fucking sleep. If I don't, who's going to wake me up? You know, I'm alone. There was 3 other people in the theater, but that should tell you what the early screening was like. But that I didn't fall asleep. I didn't once think that, like, man, this is like boring, like this is dragging along. I honestly, very well. No, like, oh, yeah, bot up now. Oh, we're here. Everything just falls, and I think that credit to the movie. I didn't really feel like it, even though it's longer than the documentary by a good margin. and it's not in 2 parts, and I had to watch it in a theater. I mean, I thought this was a really good thing for me to do after work. I was okay with this.
Yeah, and I mean, just to get my side of that out, I saw the first showing that was available in the afternoon. Oh, we lose Chase again. There we go. Hello, come back. I saw the first showing. Chase is having some internet problems today. Sorry if that's translating to you viewers out there, but so I saw the first showing that was available, which was at 4:00 in the afternoon, and also a very sparsely populated theater, but same basic setup and stuff. I was there a little bit early, just to make sure that I could get a seat, considering that on Fandango, where I got my ticket, the theater was booked out a lot more than what was actually sold. And I don't, this has happened before, and I'm very curious about this as from a business standpoint, if these tickets were actually sold or if they were blocked off, or why there were, because there were maybe, I would say, less than 10 people in my theater, but if you looked on Fandango, the map of available seats, it was the entire center section was all reserved. So I don't know what that's about.
What I think that is, if I had to take a guess, so Fandango, and there's other ticket companies, they probably buy a certain amount of them and then they sell those ones on their app or site. Could be. It would show unavailable but nobody's bought them from them yet.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe they were expecting more people to come. I don't know. I agree. When I looked at the showings at 2 p.m. for the 10 p.m. showing, I saw one person. He did not come. That person, that seat, it might have been the dude that was in front, but why would he change his seat? He picked that one. He wanted to be in that. There was nothing else around. And then there was 2 people in front that I actually walked in with. They showed up at the exact same time as me. There was only, I guess, 3 people in the entire building. So actually, there was another old couple that came in maybe 15 minutes after the previews and stuff were starting. So I don't think there was anybody. A lot of older, maybe they were fans. Maybe they drank older and they're just out hanging about for the Smashing Machine. I don't know why they would be, but maybe they know who Mark Kerr was. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because I remember us talking about it in the Discord when I was in the theater, and I definitely think that a lot of that was people who just go to see every single movie that comes out, the older crowd that kind of just has the AMC, frequent visitor pass or whatever it is, the gold ticket kind of thing. But I mean, look, I'm sure that it was a mix, and I would suspect, going back to the, who the idea of who this movie may be for. We talked about this with Bruised a lot too. This is definitely a better version of a film that if you are not a mixed martial arts fan, it's an interesting look into a world that you're not aware of, familiar with, that kind of thing, and in a very specific time frame as well. So I do think that if you're a person who's not as keyed into mixed martial arts as the two of us are, there's still probably even a definitely a very different viewing experience, and maybe even a slightly more satisfying viewing experience, because you are being exposed to something that you have no awareness of that might be very foreign to you.
Yeah, what it's made for. I think the documentary, and I think it'll be a faithful adaptation. I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't tell you the specific reason of why they wanted this one out of all the different adaptations to make of documentaries and docuseries, and to make a dramatization of this. I mean, it's cool as a fight fan. It is cool because the documentary is really fun. But when you ask who this was made for, I say it was us, but I will also say, if you are us, just go watch the documentary. I think that's a better experience, to be honest with you. Sad to say. I mean, if you're a person who likes movies, if you like movies and you like the way that movies are made and what they do and what they offer in the industry, sure, go see it. But I think watching the documentary is very crucial to just understanding what this movie should be. Or
yeah, no, I definitely do agree with. I definitely do agree with that. That the documentary overall is a much more true to life, because it is life. You know what I mean? That's if you're going to make a film that is this one-to-one trying to imitate life, lose him again. If you're going to make a film that's this one-to-one trying to imitate Life, then you can just go watch the Life version of it. So that's that. What else I wanted to touch on here? One minor thing, I guess, kind of jumping around a little bit, but kind of just picking off the things that I specifically wanted to mention. And one thing we definitely have to, before we wrap this thing up, is we got to talk about the fighting, obviously. But one thing regarding that, before we actually get to the fighting itself, did you pick up on the impact sounds at all?
Yeah,
like the actual sounds of like the hits?
Yeah, they sucked. It was like they were too enhanced.
Yeah, it was, but it's like they weren't enhanced in a way that was like bang bow zoo kind of thing. It was like they sounded noticeably odd to me, like, because like there's like in the post-production process, there's like a couple of different things that they might do, right? You might have like the whip sound that goes into it or something like that, or like a lot of times they'll hit a side of beef and that's a normal impact sound or whatever too. This had like a very distinct, like almost like kind of wet sound to it, but not in the wet of like hitting flesh with blood mixed in. It was like, it's kind of hard to describe, but it was like very noticeable to me, having seen a lot of action movies and like and then also, obviously watching fighting very often, what an impact actually sounds like. It didn't sound like either of those things. It sounded like its own sort of thing to me. And I'm very curious to know like exactly how they achieved that and if that was intentional or not, because it was a little bit like it stuck out a little bit to me.
I'll tell you the one thing that was noticeable when it comes to the fighting. And this is when it comes to filmmaking, and I've talked about this when it comes to horror films, the beauty of the film is like how to make the imagination believe that you are seeing this. And when it comes to this movie, you are watching people throw knees to the head, but there is not very good footage of actors portraying a knee to the downed opponent. There are some good angles of it, but the beginning of the movie starts, of course, Mark Kerr is talking and they're showing him beating people up, and they show him doing these knees to the grounded opponent, and you're watching it from like the crowd's aspect. So there's like a person just like standing in front of like the actual impact of the knee. And in my opinion, I'm like, this is a movie about pride where one of the main things is kneeing people in the head while they're on the ground. You better have figured a way to show me that on camera instead of doing these sound effects that I don't believe are actually what's happening, and then showing me him struggling on top of him. Like in that first specific scene, when I saw the knees to the grounded opponents, I was like, no fucking way that's what they're going to show for this entire movie. No. Is a way for me to even imagine what the only reason I know it, you see to the head right there, but I'm not watching it happen. It's completely covered up with like the crowd shot. Like, so later they do a little with the knees to the top of the head, like when it comes to scenes like that, but I didn't think they were doing a really good job of showcasing a lot of the illegality of what these fighters were doing. So that's just my opinion.
I mean, well, fair enough. So then overall, I mean, how would you rate the fighting in general then, like the portrayal of the mixed martial arts?
There's two things. One of them's not as serious as the other. I think I'm kind of cooking though. When it comes to the fight scenes themselves, when you watch the moves that are done and you watch how they're reacting to the things, looks very good. Like, it looks like what you would expect to see. There's not much of it, and like I said, some of the shots hide a lot of what's going on. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and tell you that Bruised by Holly Berry takes a little more time and a little more love into their combat scenes, because they actually wanted to showcase mixed martial arts, not just and like just roughing people around. Like,
but see, okay, fair enough. That is definitely true. Bruce, I mean, it has an entire 5-round fight for you if you want to see choreographed, mixed martial art representation, or a facsimile of it. If you want to try to see a choreographed version of mixed martial arts, Bruce does that. What I thought was okay with this film is that I thought it did a good job of emulating Pride-specific mixed martial arts, because a lot of times, because I could certainly hear the criticism from like a modern fan watching it, like, oh man, these guys this doesn't look like the MMA that I'm used to. I mean, like, these guys aren't moving like fighters, and it's like, yeah, but this is early MMA. This is the early version of the sport. So like, I definitely think that they took a good amount of care to make it look era specific when it comes to mixed martial arts. Yeah, and that's also why I thought that Alexander Usyk was a good choice for Vovchanchyn, because like he has some of the elements of a combat athlete, but he's not like, he's not a chiseled modern MMA fighter in the same way that you'd see in current UFC. Like, you couldn't put Ciryl Gane in this movie, like, right? Exactly. Yeah, or like somebody like like a Lerone Murphy. You know what I mean? Like, somebody like that would stick out like a sore thumb. This is old, like big, lumbering guys. You know what I mean? Like these are like the everyman fighters that became the stars of that era. Was because they were big dudes who threw down. Like, it wasn't like the technicality was so different, if there even was any. So I mean, I guess when it comes to like the knees and those kinds of aspects, what you're talking about with like the showcasing of the actual gore of the sport, like the brutality of the sport, it's a tough thing, because you probably should be able to see that a little bit more clearly, and you could say, oh, it's like artistic representation, you're implying that more than actually showing it. But I do think that maybe a little bit more of it might have been somewhat more impactful, it certainly would have given more of a scope in this kind of a film, because the whole idea is that you're seeing this very mild-mannered and very sensitive, sensible person outside of the brutality, and then inside he's an animal. So like, having a little bit more of what you're talking about being like showcased might have strengthened that dichotomy a little bit more. Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. But this was definitely a fun experience. I'm not trying to make it seem like you shouldn't go see this. I hope that I've given you a good, realistic approach to what you should expect. Like, this is not... I mean, honestly, with what award shows are, I don't watch them. This might get an Oscar or some shit. Like, for Dwayne Johnson, like, I would not be surprised if he pulled an award out of his ass for this one. But... it is a decent movie, and I'm not saying that Dwayne doesn't deserve an award, because he did do a very good performance. There's probably just someone out there who's giving it their fucking all in a movie, and this was definitely fine for a movie where you have the material, the source material, right in front of you, and all you have to do is just memorize what he said. Like, so it is what it is. Well, and that's why it's like, I'm glad that you say that, because it is. I mean, like, I guess both of us to an extent, but we're being pretty hard on this movie, I would say, I mean, based on our experiences with it, with this and the documentary, there are things to criticize as in depth with this subject matter as we are. So, I would also preface all of everything with that same basic sentiment. This is a good film. I mean, like, It is not a bad film in any way. I think it's well directed. I think that it does not feel its length. So, it's paced well. The performances are very good. Writing aspects of it, I mean, like, overall, it's not bad, but knowing the source material, there are some things that you might get hung up on, whatever. So, but overall, I'd say the takeaway from everything is that, this is a well-made, well-executed film. We just have a different frame of reference for all of that. So that being said, then I would like to rate this film from the three perspectives that we started out with. So rating it as a film in and of itself, rating it as a film based on its comparison to the documentary, and rating it as a mixed martial arts film and the representation thereof. So okay. So start with the first one. What was the first one? The first one is film in general. As a movie. As a movie, I'll give it an 8. I will give this an 8. Honestly, it is not a movie I wouldn't watch again. Like, I think, like, it's cool. Like, Mark Kerr is somebody that I said at the beginning, we know more about this guy than we probably should have. Like, I know the documentary is free public access, but nobody's caring about it.
So the fact that there was a movie made about it, and we already knew what the movie was about, and we got to know everything verbatim that was basically done in the movie, we know a lot about this guy. And I think having a movie about him and having a movie about Coleman is okay by me. 8 on the movie board. So, next one. Oh, wait, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
So back and forth. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. We can do it one by one.
Yeah.
So this might surprise you. I'm actually going to go lower than you on this. I would give this as a film. I would give it a 7. And the reason that I would give it a 7 is basically for the same thoughts as you. But this is a fine movie. It is a well-made movie. It's a competent film. The story, because it is a film, because it is a dramatic piece of work, and taking away that there is source material, if you did not know that there was a documentary and just went into this, it is a small slice of life film that is basically about a dysfunctional relationship and the surroundings of that. That, to me personally, without the mixed martial arts aspect of it, it's not. There wasn't anything grander or deeper than that in the dramatic portrayal of this time period, of this piece of this guy's life. Like it's pretty down the line. There are really no great curveballs to it. There's no grander depth that you take away. I remember when we reviewed KO, that's one of the things that I had said, if you're looking for some great depth or some deeper meaning or some reflection of life from it, then you don't really get too much of that. And I think that that's part of why I would go a little bit lower, is because in a movie like this, you had the opportunity to make it more about like a deeper meaning or a deeper reflection on the life of this person, or life in general, or life as a fighter. Like there's a lot of different things that could have like been amplified in the dramatic portrayal in movie form that I just don't think were necessarily there. I think that it was just a well-made, competent, small story about the lives of these people in this very specific time frame. But for that, it's fine. It's definitely good, and it's definitely worth watching. So I will give it a 7 as a film by itself.
Hell yeah. The last thing I want to note is nobody phoned in any performance here.
Oh, definitely
Everybody was giving their all. So I think that it gives me enough warrant to be like, yeah, an 8 is pretty high, to be honest. But I'll deal with it. That's okay.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I think it's great, and I probably would have like given it more of like a 7.5. Like closer to an 8 than a 7 kind of thing, if a couple of minor things were different. So really, take the two of them, average it out, and it's somewhere in there, I would say, for the average person. So that's it as a film. As a film compared to the documentary, how would you rate that?
I think this is maybe a 2-parter, or maybe you should elaborate on what you want me to judge here, because in comparison to the documentary, are you asking me what does this leave me, after watching them both, or what am I like? Well, I mean, they're
as an adaptation.
I mean, as an adaptation, they're 1-to-1. I mean, there's a couple differences, but when it comes down to the main plot points and everything that you've seen in the documentary, I mean, it's a 1-to-1 carbon copy. So, I mean, if that's the case, if I'm judging it in comparison, I mean, they nailed it. Like they nailed the elements of the documentary because they did everything in the documentary. I guess it makes it a 9 or a 10. I mean, the 9, if you want to believe that the writer's lazy and had no other options when it comes to fleshing out other scenes and different topics in it. Whether you want to believe that or whether it just I don't know. I thought it was fine in comparison.
Well, so yeah, I mean, I think that the other half of the thought process with the question is like the comparison to the documentary plus all of the extra things. So like if you take the original and then you have this adaptation of it, like the translation of that, you're saying that's a 10, that's like a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, they did everything right. Like you said, Dawn, I mean, she was damn near the same woman, same naggy woman. You got Mark Kerr who's putting on a great portrayal from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Excuse me. I mean, that's how close it was. I almost just said it was Mark Kerr. But everybody, like, nobody's phoning it in. I mean, everybody's trying to be as the character that they are supposed to be. All the scenes are set up like when you talk about filming movies and TV shows, like you think about Stranger Things, okay? It's hard to make shit look like the 80s. Like, do you guys understand? Like, you gotta like rent out like multiple blocks and like like I know computers and stuff do a lot of this for us now, but like to get sounds and vehicles and attire and landmarks, like anything that could potentially be from an era or in one of these areas that this was in the 1990s, 7 to 2000. I mean, you have to take into account that anything from that era could be there. I mean, they made it look like this movie was made in the fucking 80s or 90s, whatever. Sorry, 90s. Excuse me. But I thought they did really good making this feel like because like you said earlier, let's have like that vignette feel like they're just like timepieced. Like they want you to feel like it's the 90s. They do a great job of that. In the scenes where it's got grain on the camera and you see Mark Kerr walking out, Mark Kerr again, and you see Dwayne Johnson walking out, it's like, that looks just like what they did in the documentary. And like, that's it. And real life, when they actually had thousands of people to stack up in front of all the timepieces that were relevant at that time, you're talking about doing it now. You have to get all that extra shit you got to remake it to look like then you got to get you got to actually make people look like they care. You can't have one person being off their game. It's making you believe like this was filmed at that time. So 10 out of 10.
Yeah. So I will go lower again, but only slightly, and I'll tell you why. It's so I would give it a 9. Obviously, very high rating because you're exactly right about all of those things. I mean, the one-to-ones on some of these scenes is eerily uncanny. I mean, I go back to that scene of him in the car, and it was like, if you put those two side by side, I swear to God, you could overlap them and they would just run concurrently, seamlessly. It was that close to reality. The reason I take a slight point off is because, again, when you have the things that are not shown in the documentary, you have an opportunity there to add a lot more context that could amplify the filmmaking aspect of this a little bit more than I think we ended up getting out of those extra things. And then it goes back to that's part A. Part B is what goes back to what you were saying about like the scene in the hospital with the older lady. Like sometimes when, even though that scene is almost exactly 1-to-1, the slight differences make it so that the documentary is more satisfying, and that in and of itself is unfortunate to me. Like, you had an opportunity as an adaptation to have its own version of satisfaction in the dramatization, but because you were trying to go so 1-to-1, but it's not exactly 1-to-1, it almost falls a little bit flatter than what the reality of it was in the documentary. But in the times where it is being exactly on point, and again with the actors' portrayals, like you were saying with Emily Blunt, gave her very glowing praise. Like you get everything that you need in an adaptation out of this, and it might be one of the most faithful adaptations that I've ever seen of anything. So that in and of itself definitely deserves the 9. I give it the slight little point off because of what I just mentioned.
I think that's fair.
So then finally, as a mixed martial arts movie, what do you think?
As a movie about mixed martial arts, about the sport of fighting in a combat area, I don't think this does the greatest service to the sport. Now, to MMA fighters, this gives you a great insight of what some of them had dealt with and what they were going through in that time. I don't necessarily... for mixed martial arts, did this move the needle for people? Maybe not so much, because nobody's probably walking out of there like, man, okay, this is a good sport. I get it now. I get it. Like, I understand it now. But when you watch the documentary, and back to the in comparison, you understood that Mark Kerr cares so much about mixed martial arts. Like, it's hard for you to just not care too. It's because, like, he's passionate about this shit. Like, he loves fighting so much, and it has nothing to do with him wanting to just murder a man, that it's intriguing. So I as a mixed martial arts film, I don't think this does much for the sport of mixed martial arts. I think this does more or less this is what some mixed martial artists go through, but it's not even It's what unfortunate too is they have this with the Pride and the Pride rules and what era this is. It's less fixated on mixed martial arts and it's more focused on fighting. And I think that is what is, and those could be interchangeable. In MMA they do fight, but not all fights are mixed martial arts. So I think there was an element that they could have made this more of a mixed martial arts movie. Show that Mark Kerr's a wrestler, or show that Mark Coleman's a wrestler. Have more scenes of them dedicated to training their specific martial art, and have Igor, show that he's something. I don't know. They could have done more to showcase in the matches and in the training that this was about mixed martial arts, not about him and his bitchy girlfriend. Shit like that. So
right, yeah. So then, what's your number?
Number on that, I'm going to say 6. I won't be too hard on it. 6 for the representation of mixed martial arts, but 6 for the representation of mixed martial artists. I'll say that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm pretty well in line. Maybe I'll be a little bit more generous on this one. I'd say maybe a 7. And only when I think that everything that you said is 100% correct, actually. I think I really do agree with all of what you said. I'll give it a little bit higher in the sense of, like, if we're talking about it, there are two different representations, right? Like, if we're talking about the fighting aspect of it, like you said, like the actual MMA aspect of it, I think that you were 100% down the line correct. I'll give it a little bit higher for the historical aspect of it for the sport.
I do like that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, because that's the same reason why I rate the original documentary so highly, on top of all of the artistic aspects of it that we talked about in that review. You can go back and watch that review if you'd like to. But so, as far as like a time capsule of that era of the sport that I do think is like criminally underrepresented, a lot of that era of the sport, historically speaking, is almost lost to time. Like, it's channels like MMA On Point are make very good points about like how the documentation of it wasn't that good, so that you only get little bits and pieces of it throughout, like oral histories, and like historians of the sport are even few and far between. Like Eddie Goldman, who was in the original documentary, not in this film, because he was not necessary. I thought that was a fine exclusion, but people like him are like the people that were documenting it at that earliest stage, and there's not that much of it. So it's nice to see a representation of this specific element of mixed martial arts portrayed. As far as like, comparing it to movies that are specifically about the MMA, like in and of itself, as we said, that this is not really all that much about MMA. It's more about people. It's a human drama more than anything else. So that being said, I do think that from a historical standpoint, I think it's very good that there is something like this out there. As far as if you're looking for, I don't think that you ever actually see an octagon in this film. I think that maybe there's like that one piece when he's in the UFC for a very, very brief moment. You might see an establishing shot, but this is all in rings because that's what Pride was. So like, I think that for those kind of differences, like it's good, but if you were looking for an MMA film, there are probably different films that are more MMA centric than this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been talking for about 2 hours on this one. I think that that pretty well says a lot of what we have to say. Overall, if regardless of ratings, what would your final takeaway of this film be?
Go see it. Definitely pay to see this movie. Let the people ahead of us know that movies like this will get people in seats, and that mixed martial arts movies can have some sort of lasting effect in the community. Like, we need more representation, and we would love to get more random mixed martial arts movies, because that means we get to go to the theater and talk about them the next day we have a chance. So
absolutely, yes. No, I would agree. I definitely think that this, we've been a little bit hypercritical, as we've said. There are reasons for that. We have a much deeper connection to the original film than a lot of people would. If you have never seen the original Smashing Machine documentary, definitely see this movie. I would say you're going to come away from it with some really good performances. You're going to come away from it really knowing Mark Kerr as a human being in a way that you will get from the documentary, but you get it in a different version in this. And I think overall it is satisfying from a melodramatic standpoint, even if it's kind of small. It's
Yeah.
small in scale. So, if you go into it with that understanding, this is a definitely a worthwhile film. And also, I wanted to say too, in that vein, we get so many sequels and prequels and comic book movies and spectacle films nowadays that, like, it is nice to me, even if it is an adaptation, and that's still kind of based on source material, whatever. It is still nice to me that a smaller budgeted film like this, I'd call this like a mid-budget film, which, it kind of went away for a while. And now with something like this, and we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence of them, these are the types of films that I think like really do need support, because they are not the ones that have all of this like crazy backing and special effects and CGI. This is a human film, and like, so if you go into it with the understanding that you're not going to be getting car chases and explosions and things like that, you're really keying into an emotional relationship. That's worth viewing. That's worth internalizing, and ultimately worth supporting.
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Right on. So I guess then that will do it for this review of The Smashing Machine. I appreciate all you guys watching this one. Thank you very much. I will get this thing edited up and put out as a VOD, so keep an eye out on the channel, and let us know in the comment section below what you think we should review next. I think we basically have our next assignment sort of figured out, but always looking for other recommendations regarding MMA on film. So give it a like, leave a comment, let us know what you think, and we will see you in the next one.